So today we're going to take this steel and this bottle jack and make ourselves a hard drive crusher. So you read the title of the video, you know what's on the go. Let's get it done. So the first thing I want to do is briefly talk about design. So essentially what I came up with was, this is where our bottle jack goes. This green piece will be able to slide but be somewhat connected to these stanchions. So I'll probably put like a bit of angle iron on the outside edge of this. It'll fit over this so it'll slide. So we'll probably have that surface greased along this line here and this line here. And then we'll have some kind of breaker head. I was thinking about doing like a point, but I think that would be a pain in the balls with regard to piercing drives and then getting them stuck on there. So I'll probably use a piece of angle iron or a wedge or something like that welded onto the bottom of the slider that can push our drive, the red thing here being the drive, down into a recess, essentially cracking it off or breaking the platters or bending the platters physically. And we'll have return springs like this that'll return the jack up to a regular position when we loosen off the screw to relieve the pressure. So I've got my two outside frame pieces done. What I want to do next is I want to cut the piece that slides that this sits on, as well as the piece that goes across the top of here. In my original diagram that I drew, it was about 7.5 inches when I measured these. I think what I want to do is give myself an extra ½ inch, so I'll make these 8 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and mark those and cut them now. Okay, so we got these pieces cut. So essentially what we'll have is, this is top of the press. This will sit pretty much here like this. This one will slide with the shit off of it there. So we got this here. This is our slider piece. Worst against the bottom of that, we'll use this angle iron here. And what we'll do is we'll have that set up so we can have this attached and it'll slide up and down using this. So it'll be sliding like this. These little pieces of angle iron will have welded to here, so I might need to take another little bit off each side of this so it'll fit in there. And that way you can slide up and down freely like that. So there's our slider tacked up. So yeah, once this is assembled and we got this like so, and this slides up and down here like this. We'll have this interior surface greased so it'll slide nice. So now at this point what we're going to want to do is go ahead and get our top bar tacked in place. We can stand it up and test out our slider to make sure it fits and slides without jamming. I'm just going to stand this up, have a quick look at the stroke of our slider, and that looks like it's pretty good to me. It's not going to come out and staying in position. There's not a whole lot of side play. Put the same up top as it is down bottom. It's looking to be to here anyway, so this will slide well for us. Like I said, we'll get this greased up once it's all assembled. So here we go, we've got our two base pieces. I'll clean up the edges so I can fit them together nice and tight. And we'll stitch weld them together. And then what we'll end up doing is we'll mount our point, our two pieces of round stock or whatever the drives are to get pressed down into. And then this will mount like so-ish. That should be good and sturdy. And then we'll have springs, the jack, our crushing point here. And we should have no issue then putting drives in and squatting shit of them. So I think what I'm going to do is this will be like this when you look at it front on. So what I want to do is I'm going to take some of this round stock, and that way I can have a longer thing. What I'll do is I'll make it so it's about this long, so you'll kind of see it, stick it over the sides, either side of it. But I want to make sure there's enough length here that when it presses on the drive, it'll really put a lot of force down through the plates or whatever, so they ensure to bend on them or whatever. So probably gonna make this stick out an inch either side. So I'm gonna want this 3 inches long. So I'm gonna cut that, clean it up, and get it tacked on, and then we can look at getting things mounted up to our base. So now this is the situation we have going on. I've got my pressing point just tacked on there lightly, just like everything else is just tacked up for now. Frame is not tacked to the base yet. This is going to sit essentially where it is now. The springs will pull this and keep it up. When we push down, we'll have, I need my round stock. One moment, I'm going to cut off a couple quick pieces of round stock and we'll lay them in place. BRB. So with our bottom point that the drives will be pressed down into, and the jack in place, with the jack all the way up currently, I'm going to go up. We run into a situation where there's just barely enough room to get a drive in there. So we need to add probably a 2-inch piece to each of the bottoms of these side posts, and then we should have more than enough room. So I'm going to go cut two 2-inch pieces of steel, and we'll get them tacked in place and have a quick look and make sure everything fits together. So now that I put on a couple inch extensions here, we've got a situation where now when our base pieces are in place, just drop it over here for a second. Now with the jack in, we'll have well more than enough room for the drives to be placed in. So before I go ahead and tack the frame on, I'm going to go ahead and get it taken apart. We'll go ahead and finalize all our welds, grind anything that need to be ground, like the ones that'll be along here because they'll interfere with the slider, and then we should be good to tack this in place. So let's get some welding done. So here's where we're at now. Everything is in place and ready to tack. So I'm ready to tack the base onto the, tack the base and the frame together. It's in position. So make sure everything is square. And we'll hit that with a few tacks, enough to keep it in place. Then I'll go ahead and get the jack in there and I'll jack it up enough to keep it tight, and then we'll crush a drive just to see how it goes. And then we'll go pick up some springs. So at this point we're ready to give the old cruncher a test. So I got my safety goggles on. Let's test it out if all goes well. We'll go pick up some springs and come back, get them mounted up, and put this thing to its finished state, and we can hit it with some paint. So here we go. So if we had some heavy duty springs on this now, they'd be returning the thing back up. You can see the drive is good and toast. So one thing I want to do at this point is I'm going to have it so that the jack isn't fixed in this frame. But what I want to do is I want to use a piece of the Schedule 40 pipe that I just cut, and I'm going to weld that onto the top of the frame here, and that way, that combined with the platform that I'm going to put here under the bottom of the bottle jack, will give the jack a very sturdy place to sit. So at this point I'm ready to fix some springs in here. So what I picked up was these, like a door return spring almost kind of thing. It was one piece, I cut it off. I'm pretty sure it's going to have enough tension to be able to pull this back up. And the length should be good. Now that I got it halved, by the time it stretches down, it'll have enough tension to pull the jack back up. So for mounting the springs, what I did was I went ahead and I picked up some 1/4-inch eye bolts, and what I'm going to do is I'll have these springs in place here-ish. What I'll do is I'll use the eye bolts to secure those. So you'll have an eye bolt down here and an eye bolt up here. That should keep enough tension on this to keep this taut. And if these are too long, I can just clip these off a bit more, and then we'll have the actual length of the eye bolt to adjust. So we could also do it that way. So there's our eye bolts trimmed now, so we can get those springs hooked on. Let's go ahead and get these mounted into the frame, and we'll go ahead and see what we got to do with the length of the springs. So I'm at the point now where there is tension on the bar from the jack. The springs are starting to cock, so we're just going to go ahead and push this all the way down as if we're crushing the drive, and we'll return it up and see how it behaves. Okay, so that's as far as that's going to go down. Go ahead and release the jack. Nice, I think that works really well. So you see all works well, but I think what I want to do is I want to shorten these springs up a bit more just to give it a bit more tension to pull that jack back up. So I'm going to go ahead, pull those off, shorten them up. We'll put them back in again, have one last look before we make our base plate for the jack here. So here we go, final fit up. We've got our springs shortened again by about another 1/2 inch. You see they're pretty close, they're within a coil of one another, so I think this should be pretty good. Get a bit more return force on that now, which feels nice. Let's go ahead and push our jack back in, give it a test. Here we go, hard drive will crunch, let the jack off, and our return spring returns up nice. Okay, I'm going to call this one done. So next up we're going to go ahead and put the piece of plate on here that the bottom of the jack will sit on, and then we're good to go. So what I decided to do for the base plate that the jack is going to sit on when it's on the frame here is I just took 2 pieces of angle. So if I bring you up to the frame for a second here. So these pieces of angle will essentially be welded to the bottom of this plate, and the way they'll work is they'll sit right here like this. So we'll have a situation like this where this plate sits on it like this. If I get this finagled together for a brief moment. And so with those welded to the bottom of that, you'll have a good platform. That's actually then removable. So if someone wanted to put a bigger bottle jack in, then I could just make another plate like this with a bigger base or a smaller base, depending on what they want to do. So I've got my little plate tacked up. Just goes ahead and drops here. Pretty sturdy. If I were to put the jack in place now. You see how the jack sits right on that plate? It should be nice and sturdy then on its way down. Crunch, then return. So, there you have it. There's my DIY drive crusher. I'm not going to bother painting this because the person I'm giving it to, I'm going to give them the option of painting them, or probably they want to paint it. So, that's it for this one. Feel free to subscribe and check out what I'm working on. Thanks for watching.